Are you having trouble when you paint in oil making your clouds look like clouds? I'm going to show you in this video right here how to put highlights on your clouds so they pop more, they look realistic, and you're going to be way happier of how they turn out. Coming up in this video right now. Hey guys, Wall for Games coming at you from my Creative Control playlist where I bring you the best tips, tricks, and even tutorials just like this one to unlock your creative potential. If this is your first time here, consider subscribing. A lot of beginning painters have trouble with clouds. The reason is they look generally flat because they don't understand that you need to add contrast to a cloud to make it look like it's visually popping off the canvas. And the way to easily do that is to add highlights. But a lot of beginning painters don't understand how to add highlights. So in this video, I'm going to show beginners out there the best way to add highlights to their clouds. Let's go over to our canvas. To speed up the process, I'm going to go ahead and add in a basic sky. All I'm using for this is a phthalo blue mixed with a little bit of gray just to dull it out. Once you have your sky all in place, we're going to continue on with our cloud. We're going to use a number 3 fan brush here to start off with our first cloud demonstration. If you're not sure on how to do a cloud, go ahead and check out my other YouTube tutorial video on how to do a cloud for beginners. It's very helpful and I recommend checking it out before continuing on with this video. I'll go ahead and put a link in the description below and I'll put it on a YouTube card in the top right corner, so go ahead and check it out. But basically we're going to form in our cloud by concentrating on the outside edge of our cloud. We're going to do small whisking motions and then we're going to fluff in the center by doing little circles with a 2-inch brush to give it some nice form. Once we have our cloud where we need it to be, we're going to give it a nice little lift. When you're using a number 3 fan brush, you're going to notice that some spots actually go on thicker than other spots. And this is actually a good thing because this gives us enough control to create natural highlights on its own. But sometimes these spots aren't bright enough to stand out against our background of our sky because it may be a muted color that blends in with the muted highlight. When putting highlights on a cloud, you want to make sure you take into consideration where your light source is coming from. In my mind, my light source is coming from my right. So all of my highlights want to accentuate that side. We want to take a nice thick amount of paint on our number 3 fan brush and add just a little bit of oil or thinner if that's all you have, so that way the paint flows off the tip of our edge of our fan brush there. I like to use just the corner and I use a little bit of a whisking and dabbing motion. This way I have a lot more control and a lot more fading ability on how my paint comes off of my paintbrush there. I like to just concentrate on areas that I think that the sun is kissing the cloud. Make sure you don't get carried away. When you're doing this, you kind of want to treat it just like you're doing a bush. You don't want to kill all of your darks. You want to make sure you have cascading colors of highlights, midtones, and shadows. That's what's going to create a nice visible cloud that's going to have a 3D effect on it. When you're all good and done, make sure you take your 2-inch brush, or if it's a smaller space, you can use a 1-inch brush, and very gingerly use a whisking motion to blend that bottom end of our highlight into the midtone of our cloud. And this is what's going to look like light is cascading and kissing through the tops of these clouds and give it that natural look. If you have too much paint on your 2-inch brush from the lift, just go ahead and dab it out and brush and feather in from side to side to create a nice natural look of our cloud. Now you can see by adding those highlights, it added a lot more depth to our painting by giving a lot more characteristic to our cloud with all of these kissing highlights. To compare the two, here you can see the before where we don't have any highlights and then the after of how we added those highlights to create a lot more depth within the cloud. Now that you have a basic understanding of how highlights work on clouds, I'm going to show you how to do it on a background cloud or a cloud with a little bit of color. I'm going to drop in another cloud really quick with a 3-inch brush, but all I've done to this cloud is I've introduced a little bit of permanent red or red rose, whichever kind of red you have lying around. This is just going to give it a soft pink color, which makes it look like it's sitting in the background. And this is where you'll see highlights that pay off more because you're going to have contrasting colors on top of each other. I'm gonna go ahead and move my camera in here, so this way you get a little bit more of extra detail there that might pay off. What I'm doing here at the moment is I'm fluffing down my cloud by not touching the outer edge. What this does is this creates the body of my cloud and gives me a better visual representation of how my cloud is gonna look once I put my highlights on there. Once I'm good and happy with the body of my cloud, I'm gonna give it a nice little lift up and dissipate the bottom by doing some cross strokes. When I have the cloud the way that I like it, I'm gonna continue on with putting highlights on top of my cloud. For our background cloud here, again, I'm gonna use a number 3 fan brush, and I have loaded up with pure titanium white paint. This is a very full fan brush full of white paint. And again, I wanna take in consideration where my highlights are gonna be coming from my light source. Again, it's coming from the right. So all I'm doing to add on my highlights is I use the corner of my fan brush and I dab and add a little bit of a circular motion. The dab is what allows me to apply the paint on, and the circular motion is what allows me to fade it in to the body of the cloud. Without the circular motion, I'm gonna have just blobs of white paint. And if I was looking for an impasto look, that would look really good, but I'm going for more of a realistic look. So I like to fade that bottom end of the highlight into the body of my cloud. Don't think you just have to use the corner. You can use the full fan brush. When I get to the bottom edge of a cloud, I will sometimes use all the bristles to tap in certain spots, because as I get away from the top of my cloud, the highlights kind of fade away into the body of the cloud as the penetration of the light kind of fades away. When I have my cloud the way that I like it, I very lightly, and I do mean very lightly, fade in only the bottom portion of my highlights. I barely am allowing my 2-inch brush to touch. This is just to create a natural transition from the body of the cloud to the highlight source. Once I'm happy with where I have all of my highlights, and it's up to you to decide how much you want it to fade or not, I'm gonna give it a very, very, very light lift up. This is a very soft touch, so make sure you go slow. If you get any excess paint on your paintbrush, which you could get from those highlights, just dab it out on a paper towel or excess rag and go back and give it lift after lift, but only allow a few bristles. If you have too many harsh highlights on the bottom of your cloud, just go ahead and cross stroke those out. Once you're happy with your cloud, just feather it in from side to side, and you've got a gorgeous, beautiful looking, realistic cloud. Let's say you're not comfortable using a fan brush. That's quite fine. I wasn't for a long time, but you can still use it to do a dabbing cloud, which is very easy to understand and do. Run your number 3 fan brush through some paint and start dabbing in with the corner side of the brush, allowing to the bristles to flare out. Only concentrate again on the outside edge of a cloud. Make sure you go up and down, left and right. Try to not make that cloud too uniform, because clouds really aren't that. When you have your cloud the way that you want it and the body's filled in from your dabbing motion, grab your 2-inch brush and do the same steps. We're just going to use the small circle motion to accentuate that body of the cloud, and we're not going to touch the outer side of our cloud. Again, that's going to be used to create crowns and highlights, and it's going to look like light is shining through and wind is whisking through those sides. When you have the cloud the way that you want it, we're going to use the same exact motions that we used to create the cloud. All we're going to do is take our number 3 fan brush and dab it in some pure titanium white paint and use only the corner, allowing the bristles to flare out, and highlight where we think the sun is kissing across our cloud. This motion and this effect is perfect for low-hanging clouds or wispy clouds or anything near the horizon line. Just concentrate on using a dabbing motion and forming that outside highlighted side of our cloud. Make sure to take your time when you're dabbing in your cloud, because you have the ability to go as slow as you want to form a cloud to give it some ridges, bumps, and some valleys. This is what's going to make a cloud look more realistic, because it's going to have more of a free-form shape to it. Once you have the cloud the way that you like it, it's the same steps again. We're going to use a 2-inch brush to blend in the bottom half of the cloud to make it fade from the highlight to the body and give it a nice lift, so that way it looks like the sun and the wind is cascading through the highlights that we just applied on. If you don't feel like using a fan brush, which is completely fine, I recommend using a filbert brush. A filbert brush will still give you a lot of detail and control while still allowing you to add enough flare onto the highlight side of your cloud. And wouldn't you know, it's the same exact steps. All you need to do is load up your filbert brush with some titanium white and concentrate on the outside edge of a cloud. I recommend using the dabbing or the whipping and dabbing motions. This way it'll give you a nice shape and form to your cloud, and it'll make it look realistic. You just follow the same steps that we laid out in the prior clouds, and you'll see how well it will work out for you. Hey, thank you for watching this video, guys. By doing these simple little changes, you'll see how much your clouds can morph into a more realistic cloud and pop right off that canvas and be a little more eye-catching for you and your customers that you may be selling your paintings to. If you guys like this video, go ahead and give it a nice thumbs up, and feel free to leave a comment down below. Let me know some of the best ways that you make your clouds actually pop off your canvas. I would love to learn new tips and tricks myself. You guys can follow me on all of my social media on Twitter and Instagram. You can also watch me paint on Twitch all the time. Feel free to support me on the links below. You can also buy some of my art in my Flare Dash store. I will put a link below. It helps me out a lot. And feel free to share all this information with all your fellow painters out there. Once again, I'm Wild for Games, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Peace.